Now in this module, we will practice the balancing of ledger accounts. But always keep the important tips that we have already remembered, that the balance of each ledger account would be reflecting its nature, the nature of that ledger account. Okay? Let's see what happens. Here it is a bank account. So we are done with the posting thing, and you see its balance is appearing in the credit side. So since it's a bank account and bank is a member of assets family, or the main head is asset for the bank, and nature of the asset is debit. Bank being member of asset having debit as nature, its balance would always be appearing in the credit side, but would be named as debit balance. Remember over here, unless we are having overdraft facility with the bank, only in that case the bank will become a liability. So that's an exceptional case. At this stage we are not discussing bank as an overdraft. So over here bank is an asset, so its balance would be appearing in the credit side and would be termed as debit balance. In the same way, cash again a member of asset having debit nature, its balance would always be appearing in the credit side but would be named as debit balance. Okay, move forward. Capital is member of owner's equity having credit nature. Its balance will always appear in the debit side and be named as credit balance because its nature is credit. Furniture being asset, its nature is debit and its balance will appear in the credit side and would be named as debit balance. When, okay, now you are perfect, yes, it's member of asset having debit nature, its balance will always appear in the credit side and would be named as debit balance. Great. Rent is an expense. Okay, it's debit in nature and its balance would be appearing in the credit side and would be named as debit balance. Purchases, again, it's debit in nature and its balance would be named as debit balance. Creditor, it's a liability. Liability is member of credit group. Its nature is credit. Okay. So its balance will be appearing in the debit side as we can observe over here and would be named as credit balance. Then comes sales. Sales is income and credit in nature. Its credit side would always be heavier and its balance will be appearing in the debit side and would be named as credit balance. Wages are expense, debit in nature, and its balance will be appearing in the credit side and would be named as debit balance. Insurance, again it's an expense, debit in nature, balance would be named as debit balance. Purchases return, yes, it's member of expenses group, but it is an exceptional case because purchases return are contra to purchases. Therefore, it will always give us a credit balance. Its credit side would be heavier and you see its balance is appearing in the debit side, would be named as credit balance. Dunhill is our creditor and it is liability having credit nature, credit side is heavy, therefore its balance 11,000 appearing in the debit side would be named as credit balance. And stationery is an expense having debit nature, its balance would always appear in the credit side and would be named as debit balance. One thing I want to repeat, you see, let's take example of bank once again. Although it's a shortcut that since its balance is appearing in the credit side, it's debit balance, or since bank, its nature is debit, being member of asset, therefore it would be named as debit. Cash being debit in nature, therefore its balance would be named as debit balance. But please do not forget that you have to follow all the steps of balancing a ledger account. I'm just repeating that since it belongs to asset having debit in nature, therefore its debit side should be totaled first and the same amount should be placed under the credit side, and then one by one subtract the lower side. Okay, then we shall get this balancing figure. This is in fact a tip that when we are having a debit nature account with us, its debit side would always be heavier. And when we are having an account which is credit in nature, its credit side would always be heavier. And the balance will be appearing in the opposite side. So remember this tip, it is very important. One more thing I want to discuss over here, that mostly people used to write carry forward with all the balances. We will discuss this concept at a later stage as well, but please do not write carry forward or carry down with the nominal ledger accounts, means with expenses and incomes, because the balances of expenses and incomes are not carried forward in the next period, in the next reporting period. Rather, these are closed in the current reporting period in the income statement or profit or loss account. Thank you very much.